Okay, good evening, everyone who's in the room already. This is Diane Cece, and we'll be starting in just a minute here. Okay, so a couple of announcements, and there's actually a few more on the next slide, so I'll go through them all together on that slide. And then we do have a special presentation, a special event for this evening to recognize and honor the founder and our very longtime president of ENNA, Laurel Lindstrom. Just as a couple of updates, there is a number of activities going on right now within the city relative to zoning regulations, and you can watch for those in your email. And some other new business that has come up that's also been in your emails about undergrounding utilities on East Avenue, some more of the street and bridge closures. We'll be doing an announcement on the tree spotting program and the work of the Tree Alliance right now to plant some trees in Ludlow Park, and possibly requesting a meeting with the DOT commissioners and our state reps to talk about these projects that are here. Okay, so for public hearings and forums and meetings, just as a reminder, ENNA's second Shredding Day event is this coming Saturday, the 24th. It runs for the public from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. For volunteers, depending on your shift or if you can work the whole time, it's from 8:30 to approximately 12:15. We do have a few volunteers, and we can always use a couple more. So if you're able to volunteer for the whole morning or a portion, just give us an email this week at info@eastnorwalk.org, and I'll reach out. On April 28th, the First District Water is going to be having a public hearing regarding their new rate structure and rate increases. There's a detail on their website, and we'll also post it in an email for you as well. And just as a reminder, everyone should have gotten in the last emails and in the press that the First District Water this month implemented their automatic irrigation system restrictions for watering. And you can find those on their website as well. On April 29th, the city's Norwalk Planning and Zoning Department will have a public forum to present the draft recommendations of the industrial zone study that they have been undertaking for some time. The presentation, I believe, is at 6:30. I'll double check that, but again, there's details in our emails. And most of you know that East Norwalk has multiple industrial zones, including marine, commercial, and restricted industrial, which is Norton Park. So all of those will be presented. The Zoning Commission is scheduled to have a public hearing the beginning of May. And one of the items that we expect to see on there is new workforce housing regulations. There are some text changes coming up that was approved by the Planning Commission last week that speaks to developer fees that can be imposed in lieu of workforce housing or affordable housing in their units. And also it broadens the areas within the city that workforce and affordable housing would be applicable to in terms of minimums. And we'll get all that text out to you. And then finally, sometime in May, the Norwalk Seaport Association, who you know from the Oyster Festival, will be going formally before the Recs and Parks Committee and then the Common Council for approval of their first ever drive-through holiday late show at Pastor Beach, which will run for 6 weeks, roughly from Thanksgiving till just after New Year's. And we'll have details on that. For folks who live on or near Gregory Boulevard and Pastor Beach Road, we hope you'll take notice so that you can be aware of what's coming up and make public comment as well, if you'd like. So tonight we have a special presentation and some slides that we want to share to recognize and honor the founder of ENNA, Laurel Lindstrom. So many of you may know that Laurel Lindstrom actually hails from Vancouver, Canada, and came to Norwalk in the late 80s, I believe, or early 90s. And in the year 2000, became an American citizen and also a voter. And so by way of background, at around the same time as Laurel relates the story, she asked herself, how does my government work if I want to be an informed and engaged resident and a voter? And so she made a trip to City Hall. And then she started making a number of trips to City Hall to observe how government works in action by attending Common Council meetings and committee meetings of the Common Council, and also commissions and agencies, to observe how government works and what the process is in terms of how things happen at City Hall and how they impact us in the community. And the rest, as they say, is history. And I know that Laurel relates a story of having started off going to City Hall, as many of us did, going over either just because we were curious about how things work, or we may have had a quality of life issue that we were interested in that would have been before one of the Common Council's committees. And so we would go in and sit and observe. And in these early days when Laurel went, very often she was the only person from the public in the room, especially at some of the committee meetings that were a little more, obscure, that didn't really have a lot of input and engagement with the public. And she related the story of how she was in one of those meetings and she was the only person there. And it seemed like all the committee members were kind of not necessarily anxious, but they were, wondering who this person was in the room. And because Laurel really wanted to learn a lot about how local government worked, she was also taking notes at the same time. And after the meeting, one of the committee members approached her and wanted to know if she was with the press. And so she said, "No, I'm not with the press. I'm just, a regular resident. I'm just wanting to learn how government works so I could be more engaged." And I thought actually after that story, I'm not sure if one or the other would have worried them more with people at the meetings, the press or taxpayers. And so that actually then led to the beginnings of her role with advocacy and government. And really, I just kind of picked out the things that really represented Laurel from that point forward in terms of representing the community and being an engaged citizen here. To show up, she certainly went and observed and listened and learned as much as she could, to ask questions and to participate, make suggestions and compromise, and to press for action when needed. And I think anyone who's affiliated with ENNA or any of the neighborhood associations or advocacy groups today would say that this list is as valid today as it was when Laurel was first starting out to become engaged here in the community. It wasn't long after that where Laurel had actually started to become involved with local government and signed up for the local town committee, the Democratic Town Committee, and became involved in different activities through local government. And shortly thereafter, she was appointed to the Norwalk Tree Alliance. These are mayoral appointments, by the way. And also to the predecessor for the Western Council of Governments, SWRPA, which was the regional planning agency. And she was the mayoral appointee to that agency for a term. And then also was the East Norwalk representative on what used to be the Mayor's Neighborhood Preservation Committee at the very start of that endeavor. And then that kind of morphed into the Mayor's Night Out later on in the later years. And just as a note, because many people don't know, but it's worth noting that Laurel actually did end up running for office to represent our district. She was a two-term Common Council member, and in her first year running, there were some naysayers who thought maybe in the first time out, may not garner a lot of votes, didn't have a whole lot of name recognition, but did in East Norwalk for sure prior to this time frame. And so she was elected to the council for her first term. And in that election, she got the majority of votes of all the in-district candidates as well. So she not only won, but she won by a hefty portion, of votes there, which really was a credit to her name recognition within the community. If you've been following our emails, we're trying to build up our archives and our records in terms of the historical data around East Norwalk Neighborhood Association, which goes all the way back to 2001. And so thank you to board member Charles D. Segley, who's been collecting. Thank you, Charles. A bunch of those articles and photos, and we would still love the community to send in more to us so that we can build these records. What you're about to see are a bunch of slides and articles and that relate to kind of the early years of ENNA. In the beginning, the first organization that Laurel founded really was a group that went from Van Zandt Street all the way up to Sunset Hill Association, which also covered the Norwalk Green. And then through a number of iterations through all those years, the group then shifted back to being strictly East Norwalk, south of I-95. But there were a number of name changes and a number of board changes. But throughout all of it, Laurel was the leader of the effort. Through that time, ENNA has issued position statements and also studies and documents, one of which was the first group of neighborhoods that participated in master planning. And the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association actually drafted and presented the East Norwalk Master Plan recommendations in 2004. And this is kind of interesting because long before, probably a decade before, maybe more, before the city started to utilize the technology they have today with apps to report in quality of life issues and issues that you need the city to address. Long before that, the city used a system called City Scan. And Laurel and East Norwalk residents took advantage of this technology to be able to highlight different conditions within the neighborhood that needed to be addressed, be it blight or illegally parked cars, etc. One of the things in days past, you'll recognize this, I think there on the left, is the Adopt a Spot that's on East Avenue by Norwalk City Hall. And that Adopt a Spot was part of the original Clean and Green. And East Norwalk Neighborhood Association had that Adopt a Spot for many, many years. Ultimately, some of the board members I know can attest to this. It became kind of crazy, unsafe to be out there trying to maintain that with the speed of traffic and tractor trailer trucks going past, and difficult to keep it going the way that we really wanted to represent that. So ultimately we turned that back over to the city and have a professional landscape company has taken that over. But at one time we had 2 or 3 Adopt a Spot cleaning greens throughout East Norwalk. And then on the right, you see a Norwalk Hour article with the also part of the cleanup efforts for this was the one that used to be up at Kearney Street and Strawberry Hill before the DPW actually reconfigured that intersection. And in that photo with Laurel is a former board member who has since moved out west named Nick Overall. And he is the original recipient of the city's first ever tree liaison of the year award coming out of East Norwalk. And then of course there were the annual cleanups that we used to do. We hope to kind of resurrect those again as well in line with the cities. But what we've done recently, as most of you know, is we're cut over to the Shredding Day event. But these were very popular events when Laurel started them in the East Norwalk neighborhood area. And just some of the resolutions and documents that were presented coming out of the board at that time. Programs that date back There were free tree programs back then when Laurel was associated with the Tree Alliance group. And also ENNA, at that time, Laurel had implemented a guest speaker program. And that's something that we continue through today, to have interesting people come and present to our group. A lot of people recognize Laurel locally for the work that she did in terms of traffic calming and speeding issues related with traffic and safety. One of the big programs is what's called the Safe Routes to School program, which is funded through grants through the federal government. And Laurel was the lead in terms of implementing the program on Strawberry Hill. What you see here is some early documentation of a representation of the dangers of students crossing Strawberry Hill, different areas. And it was with ENNA that started to put in the crosswalks with reflective strips and better signage as well, in addition to other improvements that came along after that. One of Laurel's accomplishments was to make sure that ENNA was engaged with City Hall in a way that was meaningful to really get quality of life in the neighborhoods to be front and center. And this is an article from back when she led a walking tour with was then Mayor Alex Knopp with the Preservation Committee through Norwalk to highlight broken sidewalks and other things that needed attention, and things would get remedied. So we continue that today, and we need to keep pressing forward on that to make sure that East Norwalk is continuing to get the services from City Hall that we need. And in that photo there somewhere too is then Police Chief Harry Rilling, who of course now is the mayor. And keeping in line with traffic and safety, it was ENNA that first reported that the commuters needed to be able to try to cross safely at the railroad station. And shortly thereafter, the first of the crosswalks was installed, which has since been updated today as well. In addition to the quality of life things with traffic and safety, Laurel and the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association also took an active role in preservation of historic structures and worked closely with the Norwalk Preservation Trust, but also was instrumental in preserving and coming up with a plan to preserve 93 East Avenue, which has now been completely renovated. It was scheduled to be torn down, and now it's an historic building that was saved. Also, she implemented the Know Your Town directory in conjunction with the League of Women Voters. Most of this information is readily available online, so the pamphlets aren't done anymore, but thousands of these probably were handed out through Norwalk in an effort to make sure that people knew how to engage with local government and local associations and different service groups as well. And then studies of different areas for improvements, such as Liberty Square, came out with implemented some, or actually recommended some improvements there as well, which hopefully the city is still looking at after all these years. And along the lines of some things continue to really look the same. We continue to have traffic issues in East Norwalk. But Laurel was one of the first people to bring these issues to the attention of City Hall, which did result in improvements in terms of some traffic flow, timing of lights, and also making sure that it was a priority at City Hall to understand gridlock and traffic and safety. Also, to implement the first programs within the neighborhoods to install speed humps on some of the roads that had chronic speeding, where it was safety related. And the city supplement ultimately installed a number of speed humps everywhere. And then as more and more streets, every neighborhood wanted them, so they ended up putting a moratorium on them. But many of the streets that you go over now that have the street humps for safety were a result of Laurel's lobbying to get those there. And then, of course, one of the most important things that Laurel implemented that continues to this day is ENNA's ability to monitor for development and zoning issues within East Norwalk, and to work with city boards and make recommendations, and to try to collaborate with them in terms of future development here in East Norwalk. I pulled this article out of the Norwalk Hour. It's actually an op-ed from a former long-term board member with Laurel, Gordon Tully, who recently passed away. I know for sure he would have joined us tonight if he had been here. It speaks to a number of things development-wise, and I won't go through all of it, but I found the last paragraph really interesting because it's as relative today as it was back then. For Gordon really to point out that it's really residents that need to speak up and be engaged in terms of making sure that the community and the development that we want is what we get. And it's as simple as what he wrote here, to contact your neighborhood associations, write directly to responsible parties at City Hall, write to the newspaper, come to public meetings and speak out, and learn all you can about development in the city. And what we don't want is for people to sit back and leave it to others, because it doesn't normally have a good result. When you think of Laurel Lindstrom within East Norwalk, these are some of the things that come immediately to mind: open space, parks, community advocacy, quality of life, environment, light, safety, zoning issues, all under the category of ENNA's work under her leadership. And here's a few things that fall under the what might have happened if Laurel hadn't been steadfast. The Veterans Memorial Park, as we know it today, probably would have a fairly gigantic for-profit mini golf operation right smack there in the middle, and or duck boat operators. And rather than that, we have the 2003 master plan with capital funding for the park through the next 10 years. We hope that stays in place as they review it. But that master plan calls for both active and passive recreation, and pays more attention to veterans honors, which is primary goal of that park to begin with. Norton Park, everyone knows that there's apartments up there, but a lot of people may not realize that it was originally slated for over 328 units on that parcel where Avalon is. And through negotiation, knowing that the apartments were going to be approved, was able to get at least a 25% reduction down to the 240 that's there. The East Avenue improvements that are about to happen, negotiated for lanes that aren't as wide, and to be able to provide for wider sidewalks instead. And many people may not know that the Fitch School up on Strawberry Hill, once that school closed and went through a couple of different owners, one of the major applications that came through was a 29-unit condominium complex on that parcel, which would have been massive. And so Laurel and the ENNA worked with the city, made sure that that didn't happen there because it was inappropriate on that parcel. And instead, we collaborated with the current owners of the Maplewood Senior and Assisted Living Facility, which is now a beautiful campus there. And they're a good neighbor and a good fit right there on Strawberry Hill. And so those are things that might have been there. Just a short list. We could probably add another dozen on here right now. And then before we open it up to some people that we know wanted to say some words about Laurel and to make a presentation and then hear from Laurel, I picked out a couple of things that I saw from letters to the editor. And one came from an East Norwalker that said that she appreciates Laurel's often the thankless tasks of small city advocacy. And she has the kind of level-headed, quiet determination that was a hallmark of an earlier era of citizen volunteers who put their neighbors and neighbors first in neighborhood. And yes, this was my quote here, that we can all credit Laurel with bringing neighborhood to City Hall. And that really was the start of it. I should mention here too, that Laurel Lindstrom is an original founder of the Coalition of Norwalk Neighborhood Associations, the umbrella group as well. Okay, so before we make our formal presentation of a plaque to Laurel, and hopefully to hear a few words from her, there were some people who wanted to share some thoughts with us, and I'll leave it to Megan for if people have their hands raised, but I know that we had at least 2 speakers who were signed up to speak. So we want to give them an opportunity if they're in the room.
I'm trying to find the raise my hand, but I think I'll just
there you go.
That's okay.
I think you're on there, Todd.
So I just wanted to say that Maria and I found Laurel's courage to, despite the cliche, to speak truth to power at a time when very few people did that. I'm talking about the dark days of the Esposito administration, followed by, the much brighter era of the Knopp administration. But Laurel, I mean, we were always impressed by her courage. She would, hi Laurel, it's been a long time. We were always impressed by her courage. I mean, to be fair, she was a bit awkward when she started out, but she kept coming, and she kept, saying what she needed to say. She kept speaking to these guys who very often would ignore her or demean her, literally demean her in public, but she didn't care. She kept coming back, and she kept getting better, became a better speaker. She had her presentations were more succinct, more to the point. She really got a lot better, and she was one of the inspirations for the Norwalk Preservation Trust, to be fair. And also, for I think all of us, the Preservation Trust and the ENNA led to a rebirth or a birth. I don't know that there ever was anything like that before, of citizen activism in Norwalk, so that, the city government now listens whether they want to or not. Mm-hmm. And also that courage continued, I think, when she was elected to the council, where it wasn't easy for her to serve there. She was not exactly welcomed with open arms, as I remember. But once again, she didn't care. She stuck with it through 2 terms and continued to do what she'd started to do as an advocate at the podium in front, like all the rest of us. I know Maria worked much more closely with her than I did over time, and we only wish she could be here to say, to add to what I'm saying. But that's we're happy to see Laurel being honored like this, and it's way overdue. Thanks.
Thank you, Todd, so much for those words, and I'll echo that as well, that Laurel showed great perseverance under not ideal conditions in terms of joining the council and being willing to step up and fight for East Norwalkers. And I have to say that she always did it, and even when she had to, put her foot down, so to say, so to speak, she always respected the process, and she did what she needed to do to get the job done. But she never was disrespectful of her common council members or the process, and certainly not of the community. And for those of you who don't know, Todd Bryant is the president of the Norwalk Preservation Trust, founded by him. And Laurel was very active with Todd and his wife Maria at that time. And I don't want to get choked up now too, Todd, but I will say that Maria was a long-time board member and an advisory board member of ENNA. but she was treasured by all of us for sure. And obviously, we're missing her tonight. And, I think she's with us in spirit, and I know she would have funny stories and just the best things to say about Laurel and the organization that she should be so proud of.
True.
Thank you, Todd. Is there anyone from the public and the participants tonight and from the neighborhood who would like to raise their hands and say a few words? If you know Laurel, or just of the good work that she started way back when.
Rich Bonifant, am I allowed to chime in here?
Hi, Rich. Thank you. Wasn't sure if you can make it. Thank you.
I couldn't find, I don't think there's a button on the bottom for like saying raise your hand, so I couldn't figure that out. So I just want to say that Laurel and I served together on the Common Council. I was the majority leader, she was the minority leader, and as much as other people tried to play up the battles and all that, her and I worked very well together. First off, she came in with a lot of respect built in because, like you said before, she came in, watched a lot of meetings, learned her notes. She knew she did her homework, and so whenever she came around, even before she was a council person, it's coming with a lot of respect built in because she put in her time for that. Her and I, we served on a lot of committees together, and they even kept us around for a traffic study after we both left the council. We left for different reasons. She decided to retire, and I got voted out. But those are how you leave. But I keep coming back. But anyway, I did want to say something along the lines of how much of an advocate she was, and honestly, thanks for that presentation, because now you're jogging my memory of some of the good things that she did about that. But one thing that did impress me about her, and she did inspire me for doing the same thing, was that if a neighbor had a problem with another neighbor for stuff that's going on, either garbage or illegally building walls and subletting houses into rooming houses or something like that, if a neighbor didn't want to have a long-term battle with the person doing it and didn't want to deal with the apprehension that goes with it, Laurel would put her name to that complaint and not worry about it. And that's the way it goes. And you know what? She taught me something on that. And I did that. I was proud to say I did that, but she, hey, she's doing that. I better do that too. All right. You know what I mean? I had a lot of people that didn't want to complain and start a battle with their neighbor. And so you sign your name to the complaint, and it's coming back. Somebody's going to get mad at you. And they go, "What'd you do that to me for?" Somebody, I don't want to say like that neighbor over there didn't want to be known, but so there was a little inspiration on that. And today we are friends to this day for that. And even though I haven't seen her in a while, because she's pretty protective of the COVID stuff, I haven't seen her in a year or so. But you know what? We're friends forever on our term serving. And even though we're different political parties, we both saw things as they were going to happen, and we might have had different conclusions, or we had the same conclusion quite often. And we made sure that even when we had a fight, we didn't keep it forever. So thanks, Diane, for the opportunity, and good luck, Laurel. And I'm glad they honored you. Okay.
Thank you, Rich, for those words. It's funny. I mean, Laurel is there. We don't mean to be talking like she's not sitting right here listening to all of this. But that's another thing that continues on that Laurel started, was giving someone an opportunity to be able to have ENNA be the voice for an uncomfortable situation within the neighborhood. And we do continue that to today.
We've got Roberta has a raised hand.
This is really brief, but Laurel, I just want to sincerely say thank you for everything that you've done for our community. As someone who's only lived here for about the last 15 years, East Norwalk has become a really special place to me. And a large part of that is because of the work that you've done here. So I just want to say thank you. You've been an inspiration, and I really hope that we can continue to carry on the good work that you've done. Thank you.
And Sarah's got a raised hand.
I do. I don't know if I'm on video or if anybody actually wants me on video. There's a question. But oh, it looks like my video froze up. But anyway, hi, Laurel, and everyone. I just want to say thank you for getting us all together. And I just want to mention a few things about how this got started, Laurel, that maybe not everybody knows. Diane went through the presentation, which is great, about how everything came together. And one of the things that she mentioned, which was pretty impressive from where I sit, so close to it, was how Fitch School was possibly going to be 29 homes, 29 units, and then actually one of the options was 14 houses. And that's how I first got involved. You pulled me in, and I don't even know how I met you, but I'm so glad that I did. You appointed me, or several of us, as street reps, and I would say that's something we should consider bringing back. It was a great way after the pandemic to go around.
What are you going to do about that, Sarah? You going to make it happen?
Yeah, maybe I'll try to make that happen.
I really wish you would. It would be awesome.
It would be awesome. So that street rep thing. So I came in at an era when, and I'm going to say some names you'll probably remember, Laurel, as well as you've already mentioned Maria and Gordon and Nick overall, but Mary Beth Becker and Wendy Perdue and Eric Nees. I didn't know who any of these people were, and somehow you got me involved. I had just moved to Norwalk fairly recently. I did not know a soul here. I'd moved here by myself. And next thing I knew, I was going to Saturday meetings on working out a master plan. I didn't know anything. When Todd was talking about your bravery, he's absolutely right. And I took that as inspiration to say, it's okay if I don't know much at all. Get involved. And that's something that you did for everybody. You got us all at that time, and anybody around us, to feel very comfortable getting involved and engaged with the civic stuff, and not having to know everything, but at least knowing how to participate. And you know, one of the best things is that besides the involvement and the great things that came about protecting our neighborhood and meeting a lot of really interesting people. You know, if you hadn't connected us all, I don't think that, you know, connecting us all with a cause is how I met a lot of great people. And I think all of us, many of us, would say you were a common thread that brought a lot of interesting people together. Definitely have had some laughs for a cause, and very happy to know that I have so many interesting neighbors and friends, and you always taught us to ask the right questions. So I just want to thank you for all that. It's made a huge difference in my life, and probably everybody's life who's been a part of the ENNA. So thanks, Laurel. Really appreciate it. You're awesome.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else who would like to say a couple words about or to Laurel? You can raise your hand or unmute.
Am I muted or not?
Nope, you're not muted, but we're going to, before you speak, Laurel, we're going to go ahead and make a little presentation, if that's okay with you.
Okay. Oh, this has been so nice, though. I tell you, everybody should have something like this. I tell you.
And I don't get us all teary here, okay? Because I have to continue this. I have to continue this presentation. I should mention too that Laurel, in her real life, is a nurse, and brought so many of those skills to ENNA in terms of being able to deal with issues, and then also being able to move on, which a lot of times you have to do as a caretaker in the role that she had in her career. And she is now retired, which means that we're still going to try to loop her in on some of all the fine things we just talked about that she started. So we know where you live, Laurel, and we know you're retired. So that's what I'm going to say about that. the, let me just move this. This is a representation of it, of the plaque that we are about to present, and then we'd like to hear a few words from Laurel, and I will, I'll hold this up tonight. There'll be some fingerprints on it. It's hard to see because it is glass, but it's very pretty. And because we're social distancing, I'm not sitting in the same room as Laurel, but this will be presented to her and as the founder and the long-term president. And you'll see those dates there because every time she attempted to step down from her seat, we would take a majority vote to say, no, you cannot take down the seat. So I will say personally, before I read this, Laurel, to you, that I have really big shoes to fill, obviously, and you have always been an inspiration to me. It's one of the reasons why I've been with the organization for as long as I have been. You had asked me for a while to come onto the board, and I was reluctant to make the commitment because I wanted to make sure that it was something that I could actually be productive with and be of a value to our community. And that was a long time ago, and I'm still stayed active. And part of the reason I stay active is because of your role and what you taught me about government and interacting and working with the community, making sure that people are informed and engaged, and trying to take the intimidation factor out of dealing with City Hall. So I will try to keep your legacy with ENNA going as best I can, and hope that in the future, as I've done in the past, I can call upon you for inspiration or guidance, and just, to bounce things off of you. So I will go back to this so I can just read this. And so it just for the record and for our recording as well, it's in honor of you, Laurel Lindstrom, that the residents of East Norwalk recognize your service to our community as you achieve now the deserved status of Board Emeritus and ENNA Life Member. We are grateful for your leadership, guidance, and unwavering support that forged the path to today's organization. Your vision has resulted in East Norwalkers' collective voice to government to preserve and enhance our quality of life. And it's dated today, April 29th, 2021, from the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association. And I couldn't be more proud to hand this to you. And we would, I think people can unmute and clap if they'd like.
Yay!
It's so weird during the pandemic.
And Laurel, I could have done a 2 or 3 hour presentation. We just, picked out bits and pieces of things that are relevant. We hope we hit on some things that maybe you had long ago forgotten, even of the important role that you played here. And we're all grateful to you. And we'd be grateful if you could say a few words to the group.
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Okay, good. Oh, I can't even say how much I appreciate this. This is amazing. You're bringing back a lot of memories that I had forgotten about. It's amazing how much you can get accomplished just by getting out there and just rolling up your sleeves and and really just being persistent. And it's amazing. And I couldn't have done it without the people that were involved. That was a big part of it, is having people engaged. It took a lot of the time, a lot of work to get them engaged, because especially some people who had very busy lives and were working, had children, and really it was a priority with them, but at the same time it was very difficult. And so it was just a matter a lot of the time of just continuing to be there and set an example. And a lot of the time people would join in because they knew it was an impact in their lives as far as what was going on, and they found it was very significant and important to continue. So it's really been just listening to all this, I had forgotten a lot of the things that that we had done at that time, and a lot of the efforts and the people that were involved. And you know, hearing from you know, Sarah and you and Todd and Rich, I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, Todd is right. A lot of the time I wasn't the most eloquent person, especially initially, but I rolled up my sleeves and was persistent. And a lot of the time that gets you results. And that's the most important, is just really having that drive and the desire to do something that actually makes an improvement for your neighborhood and for your neighbors. And offhand, I can't think of anything else. I want to keep it fairly brief. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel.
Yeah, thank you, Laurel.
Yeah, very nice.
Thank you for starting this, and thank you for inspiring all of us to keep this going. We hope that we make you proud. We hope that you'll still dabble in and pop into meetings once in a while or events, and we hope that you'll be in East Norwalk with us for forever here, and but wherever you roam, if you do, you'll be a life member of ENNA and always be revered and cherished for all that you did for us in this community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that everyone can stay on. That actually concludes our presentation to honor Laurel Lindstrom. We're so glad we have an opportunity to be able to do that. Obviously we would like everyone in person to be able to do it, but we didn't want to wait too much longer. And maybe it's when all of this is over with, we can have a gathering of at least all the old board members and some of the longtime residents to come out and do something with you in person, and that would be nice, Laurel.
Right. But this has been really nice.
That concludes the meeting. There'll be a number of more information that'll come out in the weekly emails as needed, so that we don't have to go through it in the meeting tonight. Our next meeting is the third Monday in May, and we'll be looking to hopefully get the state reps in for that meeting. To talk about some of the legislation that's happening at the state level, and or possibly the someone from the DOT to come in and talk about the all the projects on their plate right now for East Norwalk, which is impacting us. So until we see everybody next month, I want to thank Laurel Lindstrom again, and thank you to the people who spoke and to everyone coming out, and we'll see you in May, and we'll see you via email. Thank you, everyone.